Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Meagan. So Meagan, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Meagan Yip. I am a Los Angelian, so I was born and raised here in Los Angeles, California. And yeah, I am the founder of Snaggle Tooth Pets. We are a new kind of healthy, low-calorie, small pet treat company. We do direct to consumer at the moment, and we're in also some independent stores on the West Coast.
So how did you get the idea for this brand?
Yeah, I would say that's a very long story, multiple parts, but I would say the short version of it is I adopted my rescue pup Cora during the pandemic, and I was actually really trying to train her and kind of work with trainers and use YouTube to really train her, because growing up I had a family dog, but we didn't train him very well. So she was my first pet, like literally my first baby fur child. So I wanted to raise her a little bit more properly and wanted her trained. However, she was extremely picky. She would not eat a lot of treats that I put out for her other than freeze-dried proteins. However, she was really small. She's like a 13-pound Chihuahua Terrier mix right now. But when I was training her as a puppy, she was less than 5 pounds. And I was meticulously cutting up these freeze-dried treats for her. And it created crumbs and it was messy. And I had my aha moment of, why don't we just make these smaller? And when I was really searching the market, I couldn't find anything. And once I started to think about this and ask some of my other friends who have small dogs and or small cats, they were like, hey, I think there's something here. And I just sort of, continued along that path and passion. And here we are 18 months later with a lot of R&D and just launched about 6 months ago.
So no, that's super cool that you were able to solve your own problem for your dog and then take that and then launch a brand. So in terms of that process, right, for manufacturing, it's always a big challenge for any, consumer brand. So do you still make it yourself, or were you able to find a good partner? What did that process look like for you?
Yeah, so I wanted to work with a contract manufacturer. I, did a little bit of Googling to just kind of see what type of pet treat business I wanted to start. And with freeze dry, it's just really hard to have an industrial freeze dryer in your kitchen. And also just with the laws in California, I think, it was just much harder to do it myself. So it was initially really difficult to kind of break into the space. And I got really lucky through actually just networking and talking with friends. I talked to a friend who had her own pet business. She was maybe 3 to 5 years ahead of me, and she suggested that I go to a trade show. But the hard thing is with these trade shows, you have to be a pet business or a pet influencer to attend these trade shows. So I was really lucky. She was going to have a booth for the very first time, and I volunteered at her booth to get in, and she was really cool. She got me in, volunteered at the booth, got to see the industry, and then the other half of the time she let me walk the floor, and that's where I found oh, okay, these are where all the manufacturers are. Spoke with a few, had to look foolish in front of some of them. I had zero experience in the pet industry prior to starting Snaggle Tooth. So had to ask the stupid questions, had to look kind of funny in front of people, and just kind of get over that fear. And I found a really nice kind of smaller contract manufacturer who was willing to take an MOQ, which stands for minimum order quantity, that achievable. Freeze drying requires huge minimum order quantities. So I did have to dip into my life savings, a pretty big chunk of it in there. But yeah, that was kind of the manufacturing process, just sort of through process of elimination, just knew that I couldn't do it myself. I also wanted a very high grade premium, like human grade, like FDA approved, SQF approved manufacturer. And I was obviously not going to be able to do that myself. So yeah, that's kind of how I went through that process.
It's awesome. No, I mean, it seems like you were able to find a good partner. So in terms of that partner, are they local to the LA area? Are they here in the US? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, they're here in the US. I was looking for a US based partner. They're in Indiana. Super great. I mean, they have their own brand. They also do private label. And the really cool thing was I actually did R&D with them to get that small size. So they were also another partner that was willing to not, charge me an arm and a leg to like really experiment with dicing the proteins like even smaller, and also just working with like just pure single ingredient, not like grinding anything up or spraying any antioxidants. So that was really cool, and they're like really nice bunch of people. So yeah, I got lucky with them. They were really willing to take a chance on me.
So, then in terms of launching this, really, so you mentioned that you just launched about 6 months ago. So where have you found the most success so far in terms of channels of actually going out and selling this product?
Yeah, it's painfully slow for me right now. Again, as I said, I'm bootstrapped. This is literally my life savings. And I actually come with a performance marketing background. Like, I feel like 5 years ago, people would raise a bunch of money, do Facebook ads, and grow that way. I mean, that was the startup I was at, like beforehand. They, got really big that way. And that's not me. So initially, friends and family was a great channel, but at some point you run out of friends and family and their friends and family to tell people. So I've been experimenting with some ads. I just don't have a ton of capital to be doing that. So I'm exploring a kind of influencer seeding route. I actually just kicked that off last week. And I actually signed up for a lot of like local events, some that are dog specific, some that are more like farmers markets, just trying to get out there. Like, I think starting this year, like I've been trying to go to 4 pop-ups every single month, and some of them are really good and some of them are really slow. So I would say, yeah, the answer to that is actually the pop-ups are doing best for me because I just need to like show up. Some of them have vendor fees, but it's nice because I think the local economy and the people here in Los Angeles love supporting like local people. And that has been extremely helpful, especially the dog community here.
For sure. Yeah. I think also when you're kind of at these pop-ups, you can have a genuine conversation. You can explain the brand, your story.
Yeah.
It's much more easier to kind of present that message as opposed to like online sometimes because you're
Yes.
behind a screen. It's like a little bit different.
Yeah. As you said, like just having sampling the pop-ups and for them to really like see my treats. So, the big product differentiator about my treats is that they're teeny tiny. They're actually smaller than other treats. And I think that product benefit is hard to explain to people, even though on my website I show like comparison photos. But once people like pick up the bag and actually like look at the treats and see how small they are, they're like, oh, this is great for my small dog or cat, or this is great for, puzzle toys or training. And also sampling, of course, is much easier. I have a little like jar out and you can give it to your pet. Like the best, I would say, sales funnel is when someone walks up to my booth. I typically try to go to dog friendly events. They walk up to my booth, they tell me that their dog is picky. And I'm like, okay, yeah, they're picky, but go ahead and try, any of these treats. You're here. And the dog eats it. That's like the best closer. They're like, oh, okay. And, my products aren't extremely expensive. It's like $12 for the beef and chicken and $13 for the duck. And typically they pick it up. And I would say from that, some of these people have converted to become online customers. So yeah, I think you said it correctly. Just like that face to face, also the sampling makes it a really strong marketing funnel.
For sure. And then in terms of online, right, where have you found the most success? Have you just been selling from your website or are you selling on Amazon or Chewy? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so as you can see behind me with all the boxes, I do all the pick and pack myself. I eventually want to offboard that because it takes up a bunch of time. But right now I'm direct to consumer. I, wanted to run this business to really reflect my values, and not saying Amazon's like a bad thing or anything, but I just chose to not sell on Amazon because I wanted to support independent pet stores. And most independent pet stores, when they pick up a new line, actually a big like differentiator of mine is that I'm local and I'm actually not on Amazon or on Chewy yet. I would love to be on Chewy one day, but I think I just don't have the unit economics at the moment. And also I just need to figure out the whole logistical side of things a little bit more. But yeah, mostly direct to consumer. And then I also sell to independent pet stores. So that's actually also a big chunk of my business.
In terms of those pet stores, like have they been in like the LA area so far, or have you been outside of LA as well selling that?
Yeah, so this is kind of new to me. I signed on a independent pet like sales team that owns a region, and I think this region is called Southwest. So they have like California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, like that area. So I'm in a few stores around there. I think as of right now, I am in maybe 22 stores. And the great thing about California is I think we have the largest just kind of like aggregation of independent pet stores, which makes it like really good to like have an independent person go out and try to pitch my line. I would say initially I tried to do that myself and it was hard, but I'm really lucky in that one of the pet stores that I work with, which is shout out to Village Pet Supply in Valley Village. They were the first to like give me a chance, hold my product. The store manager there, Sarah, gave me like lots of great advice, like how to pitch. And also she was the one that introduced me to this like independent sales team. So I picked them up and I'm trying to find more of these types of teams. But at some point, I think these types of companies go through something called like distribution. I, again, am not quite there yet, but I would say that's probably like the next step to my growth path.
So in terms of like being an independent stores, obviously it's one thing to be on the shelves, but how do you kind of, get like sell through and get people to actually like pick up the bags and buy it? Like, have you done certain promotions or in-store demos, things like that?
Yeah, so I typically when the store like holds my product for the first time, their first wholesale order, I give them like a discount for that too of like thanks for clearing some shelves for me and holding my product. And then I send usually like like an extra bag of treats for them to sample out to customers. Another thing is I would say my another thing that I'm would call it like my unfair advantage is I have a marketing background. So when developing the brand and designing the bag, I wanted it to look very different. So I'm a little bit of a nerd. I like grew up reading manga and watching anime and comic books and video games. And I kind of wanted to meld those two passions together. So if you see my package, the package itself is like a comic book paneling. And yeah, that is like very different. Like I think a lot of these new brands in the market, they have call it like design elements that are more like cartoony, but none have really taken like the comic book stance, which is something that hopefully I can own and no one copies me. But I would say like my friend Sarah, she said that it's good because people are recognizing my brand. They would come back and be like, oh, I want that comic book brand. And they're like, oh, okay, that's Snaggle Tooth. So my packaging, I would say, stands out. And that was something that was really cool. Like when you go to these trade shows, they have this section called like the new product section or the new product showcase. And it's interesting because that's what they show all these potential buyers, like what they're launching in the next year or 6 months. And as an attendee, I go and kind of take a look at like what's in the market. And like it's really fun. The pet industry kind of reminds me of like the toy industry, also like maybe the baby industry because it's like toys and food and fun stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I really need to develop something that like stands apart from all of these other brands because the pet industry, I would say some of it is very old school and some of it is also like me, a lot of these disruptors coming in. So yeah, I decided to sort of build my moat on the branding because at the end of the day, like my product isn't revolutionary. It's just single ingredient treats, human grade treats. And they're just made smaller. Like my size is pretty unique, but that moat is not huge if you really think about it at the end of the day.
Makes sense. So obviously, we just wrapped up Q1 here of 2025. So in terms of your goals for the rest of this year, like what are some of those goals that you really just want to achieve here in 2025?
Yeah, so I would say my goal for 2025 is to just continue growing. I would love to get my D2C a little bit larger. It is, I would say, like wholesale is about 50% of the business, D2C is about 50%. If I could kind of grow both slices of the pie, that would be great. I do really want to get ads to work a little bit for me because I know just that it's just hard to grow on organic, and I would like making content is very, very tedious. I spend a lot of my time doing that, but ads, I think just kind of adds fuel to that fire and to that growth engine. So I really want to get better at D2C. I want to get my product in front of more influencers and content creators to just sort of get in front of more eyeballs. And hopefully, like within the end of the year, I'm going to sell through my first product order. And, I have to buy the next product order. And I do have a hopefully new treat to be launching then. So that's the goal, is to continue surviving in
Exciting stuff.
2025.
No, yeah, it's super exciting. So obviously that you just launched it 6 months ago. You've been working on this for about a year and a half. So
Yes.
if you could go back in time to before you started this business, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
I think it was just knowing that social, and because I knew that I was going to grow probably organically, it's just takes a lot of time and energy. Like I really wish I started that like funnel a little bit earlier so that the launch could maybe have a bigger kick. And also, like, I wished I actually signed on this independent pet sales team a little bit earlier. I was very like, oh yeah, a store owner would love to talk to a founder. And I realized like, oh yeah, these store owners have 50 bajillion things to do, even like myself. So yeah, that's what I would tell myself. Just start earlier and start the content earlier.
Yeah, content is super important. I feel like in 2025, content is definitely everything. And it's awesome that you as a founder are being, kind of building in public and coming out here and sharing your story. So on that note, if somebody watching the show wanted to reach out to you or, find your business, do you mind sharing your some social media or website? I guess best ways to get in contact.
Yes. So you can find Snaggle Tooth Pets at our website, which is www.snaggletoothpets.com. And then you can find us on social, which is at Snaggle Tooth Pets. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And yeah, you could just message me there. I'm a one-woman show, so I'm the one that's running the handles. And if you leave a contact form on the website, it's also routes to me. So I'm there. And then you could also find me on LinkedIn with, I don't know the act. Yeah, just type in Meagan Yip and you should find me.
Well, Megan, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.